After reading the comments on all of those Rick and Morty videos, I've come to realize something. Rick and Morty fans have a really diverse set of opinions on what the show should be. Like, seriously, some of y'all think the episodic adventures are better, some prefer the Evil Morty, Diane, Rick Prime episodes, and some of y'all just hate everything that the show does, and I can't help you that last camp. But what I can do is pitch you some episode ideas. So that's what I've done here. Season 7 may be over, but if the reception to Season 7 is anything to go off of, the show does still have a lot of growing to do. I've planned out the story beats for 3 potential Season 8 episodes, even though Season 8 is most definitely already written. So, it might be more of a Season 10 writing exercise, if anything. If anyone on the crew is watching, just take them. No credits needed. I feel really good about these. Nah, who am I kidding? This will be just a fun writing exercise for me and you. So since everyone has a different idea of what Rick and Morty should be, I've written one serialized episode, one completely episodic episode, and one that's kind of in the middle. You can't please everybody, but you can try. So let's start with the episodic. And of course, you cannot write an episode of Rick and Morty without using the Dan Harmon story circle. I actually learned about this, or a variation of this, in my screenwriting classes that I've taken. So it is pretty useful. We'll run through each step of the journey for each episode. So let's get started. The episode starts with Summer in the garage. After doing one of Rick's chores, she accidentally discovers that you can actually smoke portal fluid. Turns out, it gives you a more intense high than any earth drug. Rick does not know what's going on, but she's been doing it for a while at this point. Like, at least a few months. Rick finds out this is happening, and he wants to put a stop to it. Not only because now everyone will want a hit, but smoking the fluid actually has a dangerous side effect. If you're fried to a certain degree, you will start to bring your other dimension selves into this reality, and it will also amplify aspects of your personality. This could lead to a runaway chain reaction of duplicating. Problem is, Summer has already sold the fluid to her friends throughout the school. Rick starts finding groups of people duplicating themselves and being caricatures of their personality. Brad got his hands on it, and now there's an army of Brads aggressively throwing everyone in the school into lockers. The nerdy kid has an army of minions that are building nuclear bombs to take revenge on the school bully. Eventually, Rick finds out the whole family has been doing it in secret for months, and everyone starts duplicating and flanderizing. A group of Summers has now gotten together to figure out a plan to win over that Ethan kid. A group of Beths have accepted their Rick-like tendencies and just started murdering horses, just to operate on them. And a group of Jerrys start networking with each other because it's Jerry. Amidst the chaos, Rick learns that all of the engineering students at the school have started doing it excessively, and they're duplicating out of control, becoming a blob-like mass that moves over the city, building random architecture and shit that will eventually consume everything. At first, Rick's primary solution is to implant them all with an inhibitor chip. He and Morty already have them implanted since they walk through portals so often. And it works on the family and most other people actually, but there's already too many engineers. So Rick goes to plan B. He grabs a syringe off the desk and injects himself and the rest of the family with pure portal fluid, turning them into living portals, and they have to tag people back to their original dimension. You touch something or someone, it goes back to its dimension. It's an extreme solution, but it works. Soon, everyone in the city is back to normal. All the engineers are back where they belong in their original dimension, and so is the massive architecture they were building. But Rick's solution has worked too well, and there's still these living portal creatures. He did not have an antidote for that. Everything the Smith family touches disappears into another universe, including other random people they bump into. Rick's portal gun disappears, the house itself, the whole city is swallowed up, and eventually the entire planet. In another universe, our Rick plus a few other Ricks quarantine the dimension and remove it from the central finite curve. It's grown to be an infection, and it needed to be quarantined off. Rick will say something like, well, that Rick was an idiot. Rick learns not to leave his portal fluid out in the open. He also learns that Summer in general just needs more attention, and the episode will tackle drug abuse overall. So I think this episode works because of its structure. My all-time favorite episodes of Rick and Morty were always the ones that started with a central concept, and stuff just got out of control quickly. Pickle Rick, Total Rickall, That's a Mort, Mortyplicity, all banger episodes in my opinion. They're fun because the central concept is something that can go in any direction. And the comedy often comes from the madness that ensues when they try to contain this massive growing problem. It would also give us interesting information on portal fluid in general. It's not really something we've explored in detail in the series yet, and it would be cool to learn that you can actually smoke it. And this episode would also more heavily involve the entire Smith family, something I feel Season 7 in particular was very much lacking. The reason it's engineering students is because there's that joke that, well, not even really a joke, it's just a sad truth, that a lot of engineering students are so stressed in school, they're overdosing on a lot of drugs. It's a problem at like the big schools like Yale and Notre Dame. It's a serious issue, and it's something that I'd like to see Rick and Morty tackle in kind of a comedic but ultimately serious way in the end. In this episode, Rick and Morty are on an adventure with Jerry, saving Snowball from a terrorist faction of intelligent dogs. In their hurry to escape this faction and get back to Earth, they accidentally leave Jerry behind, which they've been shown to do in past episodes. The faction captures him and holds him prisoner. Remember, all the way back in Lawnmower Dog, Snowball hated Jerry in particular, so it makes sense that these dogs would grow to hate him as well. The terrorist group wants to bomb the Earth to destroy where they originally came from. They take Jerry, and they implant a genetic bomb inside of him. We don't yet know what this bomb is, or how it will go off. All we know is Jerry is now a bomb, and they send his ass back to Earth. Rick finds the bomb while trying to, comedically, implant something completely different inside of him without him knowing. We find out that if Jerry goes to the bathroom, the Earth blows up. The dogs did it this way because Snowball would get in trouble every time he peed on the carpet. And this is their revenge. If Jerry pees, everyone on Earth dies. So Rick tries to give him the pill that dissolves his urine, and that works, but he still has to take a shit. And Rick does not have a pill for that. So Rick and Morty shrink down inside Jerry to disarm the bomb, while Beth, Summer, and Snowball make sure Jerry does not shit. And they also have to fight off a bounty hunter that has shown up to the house to kill Rick. This bounty hunter can even be a returning character like the Die Hard guys. Rick and Morty disarm the bomb, and Rick teleports it to the home planet of this bounty hunter. They're in a standoff. If the bounty hunter tries to kill anyone in the Smith family, Rick will drop the bomb on this planet. The bounty hunter relents, he gives up. So Rick teleports the bomb to anywhere else in the universe. He doesn't do any calculations, just anywhere else. Turns out, he accidentally teleported it to right above Gaia, the planet from the episode Children of Mort. She was ramping up her space army to take over Earth. But Rick just unknowingly solved that problem when he dropped a bomb onto her. Everyone returns to normal, and Jerry is able to take a shit, finally. Snowball apologizes for the trouble, then returns to his home planet to continue the fight. Rick learns to not leave Jerry behind, and to be more empathetic, even towards those who are trying to kill him. Old Rick would have dropped the bomb on them anyway, but he doesn't do that this time. This episode is in the middle in terms of serialization, I'm sure you could tell. There's little elements here and there of continuity, but we don't set anything up that we're forced to come back to, if that makes sense. The intelligent dogs are dealt with, Gaia is dealt with, and everything is wrapped up with no loose ends. None of the plot points are actually fixing or retconning anything, they're just past characters or situations that we've seen. I really did love how almost every episode of Season 7 brought in certain characters or little details that presented us with the idea of continuity, like Unity returning in Episode 3, Summer saying Parmesan in Episode 4, things like that. I wanted to do something similar in this episode. The intelligent dogs, Gaia, even the Die Hard guys coming in would kind of make the episode more memorable, I feel. Now on to the last episode, which is in full serialization mode, but it likely won't become obvious why until the very end. Rick is working on something in the garage. Morty comes home from school, again rejected by Jessica. He's been on a few dates with her, but he's just not feeling connected with her, and he doesn't understand why. Rick ultimately feels bad for him, and he expresses this visually through the storyboarding, showing that Rick is just honestly feeling bad for the guy. But he also doesn't really know how to express it. Rick wants Morty to be happy, because it impedes his work, or at least that's why he says. The next morning, Morty wakes up to Jessica standing outside of his house, saying that she changed her mind and she wants to hang out today. Morty is super relieved to hear this, and his sadness immediately gone. Rick is happy to see Jessica and happy to see Morty feeling good again. In fact, he's feeling so good about it that he sends them on an adventure by themselves in Rick's ship. Maybe it's just to run a quick errand. Maybe it's just to cruise around for a bit. But regardless, Morty is stunned that Rick is actually letting him drive the ship alone. Morty's unfamiliar situation here is actually getting to spend time with Jessica. Just the two of them talking on a long drive through outer space. So there they are driving through space, and Morty wants to use the opportunity to smooth talk Jessica, you know, be the Rizzler for a little bit, which normally never works on her. See, in the episodes that would lead up to this episode, we would see that Jessica's been pretty distant lately, and it's been affecting their relationship. So, Morty tries once again to show off to her, to smooth talk her. And to his surprise, this time, Jessica actually reciprocates, which is odd. They could even get physical with each other, which has super never happened before, and Morty is loving it. He's never made it past first base. It's crazy to him. Then, suddenly, they get into a situation with a rogue asteroid field, and suddenly they're not cooperating well together. They go from making out to just completely arguing, not getting along at all. When it comes to decision making, they just don't mix. Rick isn't there to help them, but they eventually learn to put aside their differences long enough to get through it. So here Morty is, in the ship with Jessica, and they just survived the asteroid field. Jessica immediately wants to get back to what they were doing before, just making out. And Morty is kind of shocked and almost offended by this. They almost just died. What is she doing? He immediately puts the brakes on this whole thing and confronts her about her inappropriate change in behavior. Morty, being confused about why this Jessica only responds to physical touch, completely opens up. This will be the most vulnerable we've seen Morty ever. He's confused, and he's starting to realize that getting to make out with her just isn't really doing anything for him. It's not making him feel any less lonely than he was before. Finally, Jessica drops the act and just connects with him a little bit. And after a long existential conversation, they ultimately come to realize and agree that they're just not meant for each other. This absolutely crushes Morty, but he recognizes it was necessary for him to move forward. They get back to the garage, and Morty immediately leaves with his sadness returning, but in a new form. He knows he'll never be with Jessica ever again. Rick turns to Jessica and tries to deactivate her because, surprise, she's a robot. Through her conversation with Morty, she actually gained true sentience. Rick and Jessica bot have a conversation, and it's implied to the audience that she's actually a reskin of a Diane bot Rick once built after he lost her, but she was ultimately shelved because he couldn't connect with her. The reason she only responds to physical touch is because she's programmed that way. That's how Rick sees love, so it's how he programmed her. This also implies that since Rick was never able to open up with her, that's why she never gained true sentience like he wanted. Rick learns the consequences of never opening up to anyone, and he also learns that he'll never be able to create a true Diane bot, because he can never open up enough to get this level of sentience. It's also bittersweet because Rick's goal of getting the robot to sentient level was achieved, but in the end, she didn't want Morty. Rick finally deactivates her and comes to terms with his own avoidance of the real problem, himself. So I feel really good about the concept of this episode. I think we all love to see Rick get humbled to really get what's coming to him. I think it would make sense, narratively, that Rick would eventually try and build a robotic replacement for Diane at some point. But it would ultimately never work because it only gave him physical gratification. Rick already learned that it could never work for him. But after seeing Morty just so depressed the other night, he tried to help him the only way he knows how, to build him something. The title of the episode also foreshadows this twist. Booger Aids Jessica is the file name he used for the program. This episode is in full serialization mode, really progressing Morty's relationship with Jessica, and definitely progressing Rick's character arc of moving on from Diane. Maybe the episode could end with a post-credits scene of Rick on a date with someone new, showing how he really has moved on this time. That would be a huge development for him. Yes, he's dated some space creatures in the past, but it's clear they were never super serious. This one is gonna stick. So those were my 3 episode pitches for season 10 and beyond. Are there any tweaks you would have made to their stories that could make them better? Or do you have any episode pitches of your own? Leave a comment because I really do love reading every single one of them. I really wanted to get Jerry, Summer, and Jessica involved in these new episodes. Because as I've said in my other Rick and Morty videos, here's a playlist, I've always said that I want those characters to come in and have a duo episode with Rick. It would just kind of be really interesting and something we haven't really seen very much of before. And lastly, thank you all so much for the support on the channel. You know, it took me 3 years to hit 1,000 subs, and just 1 month to hit 2,000 after that. You've all been amazing, and now that Season 7 is over, I'd like to know which show or even which video format you'd like to see me doing moving forward. Because this channel isn't just for Rick and Morty content. I know that might disappoint some of you, but I don't want to stick to one show and that's it. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one type of content. I also want to move into other areas as well. They can still be review-based, but maybe I could review South Park, or maybe I could review, I don't know, I could freaking go back to Gravity Falls again, or even Final Space, something. So let me know in the comments also what you'd like to see moving forward on this channel besides Rick and Morty. Be on the lookout for a community post about this as well. Anyway guys, that's all for this video. My name is Candles. I love you all. Good night.